I stood in the dim light of my workshop, the scent of cedar and varnish clinging to my hands as I sanded the edges of the wooden box. It was a gift for my sister, Clara, the only person I'd ever poured my heart into pleasing. The box was intricate, carved with patterns of ivy and roses, each line a testament to hours spent hunched over my workbench, my fingers raw from effort. I'd always been the quieter one, the one who fixed things: broken chairs, family arguments, Clara's mistakes. She was the golden child, radiant and charming, the one who could make our parents laugh even when the bills piled up. I didn't mind. I loved her light, even if it cast me in shadow. But tonight, as I finished the box for her engagement party, I felt a flicker of pride. This was my offering, a piece of my soul for her new life with Ethan. The party was at our family's estate, a sprawling property with a barn we'd turned into a wedding venue. It was our legacy, the one thing Dad left us that hadn't crumbled under debt or neglect. Clara had insisted on hosting her engagement party there, and I'd spent weeks preparing the space-stringing lights, polishing floors, making it perfect. As I walked into the barn, the box tucked under my arm, the chatter of guests and clink of glasses filled the air. Clara was in the center, her laughter like music, her fiancé Ethan at her side, all polished smiles and easy confidence. I approached her, my heart pounding, and held out the box. "For you," I said softly, "for your new beginning." She took it, her eyes skimming the carvings before she laughed a sharp, careless sound that cut through the noise. "Oh, Emily, it's quaint. Did you make this in your little shed?" The crowd around her tittered, and Ethan smirked, his hand resting on her waist. I felt my face burn, the weight of their amusement pressing into me. "It's handcrafted," I mumbled, but she was already turning away, tossing the box onto a table cluttered with champagne flutes. "Sweet, but we've got a registry for a reason, Em," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. The guests laughed again, and I stood there, invisible, my gift discarded like a child's drawing. I didn't say a word. I couldn't. The hurt lodged in my throat, a stone I couldn't swallow. I slipped out of the barn, the cool night air biting my skin, and walked to the edge of the property, where the field stretched into darkness. I thought of all the years I'd carried Clara's burdens, her reckless spending, her lies to Mom, the way she let me clean up her messes while she basked in the spotlight. I'd never asked for anything, never demanded gratitude. But that laugh, that casual cruelty, cracked something inside me. I sat on the grass, staring at the barn's glowing lights, and made a decision. By morning, I'd sell the venue. The one thing she wanted for her perfect wedding. The one thing I controlled. The next day, I woke before dawn, the house silent except for the creak of floorboards under my feet. I called our family's lawyer, Mr. Hargrove, and told him to find a buyer. Discreetly, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. I want it done today. He didn't ask questions. He knew the property was in my name, a detail Clara had always overlooked. By noon, a developer had made an offer: cash. Immediate. More than I'd expected. I signed the papers in the lawyer's office, the pen heavy in my hand, and felt a strange calm settle over me. Clara's wedding was 6 months away. She'd planned every detail around that barn, down to the fairy lights she wanted draped over the rafters. Now it was gone, sold to a stranger who'd turn it into condos or a strip mall. I didn't care. I just wanted her to feel what I felt: small, dismissed, erased. When I returned home, Clara was in the kitchen, sipping coffee, her engagement ring glinting under the sunlight. "Where have you been?" she asked, barely looking up from her phone. I shrugged, pouring myself a cup. My silence a shield. She didn't notice. She never did. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd gone too far. The venue was our legacy. Not just hers, but the memory of her laugh. The way it echoed in my skull drowned out the guilt. I'd spent my life building things for her furniture. Dreams. Excuses. This time, I'd built something for myself. Justice. The weeks that followed were quiet. The kind of quiet that hums with secrets. Clara was busy planning her wedding, oblivious to the sale. I kept my distance, working in my shop, carving new PCs, a table, a chair, anything to keep my hands busy. Mom called me one afternoon, her voice tight with worry. Emily, Clara's been talking about the venue. She's meeting with the planner tomorrow to finalize the layout. You haven't done anything, have you? I lied, smooth as glass. Of course not. Mom, it's all fine. But it wasn't fine. The developer had already started surveying the land. And soon, Clara would find out. I waited, my heart a mix of dread and anticipation. For the moment she'd realize what I'd done. It came sooner than I expected. 3 days later, Clara burst into my workshop, her face pale, her eyes wild. Emily, what the hell did you do? She screamed, holding up her phone, where an email from the planner glowed with the news. The venue had been sold. This is our place. How could you? I stood there, my hand steady on the chisel, my voice calm. You didn't want my gift, I said. So I gave you something else. Her mouth opened, then closed, her fury melting into confusion. For the first time, I saw her falter, the golden girl stripped of her shine. And in that moment, I felt powerful but hollow, too, like I'd carved out a piece of myself along with her dream. Clara's eyes burned into me, her breath ragged as she stood in the doorway of my workshop. The chisel in my hand felt heavier now, its weight grounding me as her words hung in the air. You sold it, she whispered, her voice breaking. You sold our family's legacy because of a stupid box. I didn't flinch, though her words stung like a slap. It wasn't just a box, I said, setting the chisel down with deliberate care. It was me, Clara. Everything I've ever done for you. And you laughed. She shook her head, tears welling. But I saw the flicker of guilt in her eyes, quickly buried under anger. You're insane, she spat. You've ruined everything, me wedding, Ethan's family, our reputation. Do you even care? I didn't answer. I couldn't. The truth was, I cared too much. And that was the problem. She stormed out, leaving the door swinging on its hinges, the echo of her footsteps fading into the evening. I sat on my workbench, staring at the half-finished table, its surface smooth but unpolished. Like my thoughts. I'd wanted her to hurt, to feel the sting of being dismissed. But now that I'd done it, the victory tasted bitter. The venue wasn't just hers. It was ours. A tether to Dad's memory, to the summers we'd spent running through those fields as kids. I'd severed that tie in a moment of rage, and now the weight of it pressed against my chest. But I couldn't undo it. The papers were signed, the money transferred. All I could do was wait for the fallout. The next morning, Mom called a family meeting. She sat at the dining table, her hands clasped tightly, her face lined with exhaustion. Clara was there, her eyes red but defiant. Ethan beside her, his jaw tight. I took my seat across from them, my hands folded in my lap, my expression blank. Emily, Mom began, her voice trembling. Clara told me what you did. I need to hear it from you. Did you sell the venue? I nodded. The motion small but deliberate. Yes, I said. I did. The room went silent. The kind of silence that swallows sound. Clara's sob broke at first. Sharp and raw. Why? She demanded. Why would you do this to me? I looked at her. Really looked at her. And saw the sister I'd once idolized beautiful. Flawed. Human. Because you made me feel like nothing. I said quietly. And I wanted you to know how that feels. Ethan leaned forward. His voice low and dangerous. You're selfish. Emily. You've destroyed Clara's dream over a petty grudge. Do you know what this means for us? For our families. His words were meant to wound. But they only fueled the fire in me. Selfish. I said, my voice rising. I've spent my life fixing your messes. Clara. Covering for you. Working for you. Giving you everything. And you laughed at the one thing I made for you. Mom reached for my hand. But I pulled away. Emily. She said softly. This isn't you. You're not cruel. Her words hit harder than Clara's anger. Was I cruel? I'd never thought of myself that way. But the truth was, I'd wanted Clara to hurt. I'd wanted revenge. The meeting ended with no resolution. Clara stormed out again, Ethan trailing her. And Mom looked at me like I was a stranger. I went back to my workshop, the only place that felt safe, and tried to lose myself in the grain of the wood. But the guilt was creeping in now. A slow poison. I'd sold the venue to punish Clara. But I'd also punished Mom. Myself. Our past. I thought of Dad. How he'd loved that barn. How he dreamed of us running it together. I'd betrayed that dream. And for what? A moment of satisfaction that was already fading. Days passed. And Clara didn't speak to me. She threw herself into finding a new venue. Her calls and emails a constant hum in the background. I overheard her telling Ethan she'd found a place downtown. Expensive, but workable. It's not the same, she said, her voice breaking. It was supposed to be our place. I wanted to feel vindicated, but all I felt was hollow. I started avoiding the house, spending long hours in my shop, carving until my hands ached. One night, I found Mom there, standing in the doorway, holding the box I'd made for Clara. You put so much into this, she said, tracing the carvings. Why didn't you tell her what it meant to you? I shrugged, my throat tight. She wouldn't have cared, I said. Mom shook her head. You're wrong, Emily. She's selfish sometimes, but she loves you. You both just forget how to show it. Her words stayed with me, gnawing at the edges of my resolve. I started to wonder if I'd misread Clara's laugh, if it had been careless rather than cruel. I thought of all the times she'd hugged me, thanked me, needed me. Had I let one moment define her? Define us? I didn't know anymore. But I knew I couldn't let this be the end of our story. I had to find a way to fix it, not for Clara, but for me, for the person I wanted to be. I started researching the developer who'd bought the venue, digging into the contract, looking for a loophole. It was a long shot, but I had to try. I'd spent my life building things. Maybe I could build a way back to my sister. The lawyer's office smelled of old paper and coffee, a stark contrast to the chaos in my head. Mr. Hargrove sat across from me, his glasses perched on his nose as he skimmed the contract I'd signed. Emily, he said, his tone cautious. This is airtight. The sale went through. Funds transferred. Permits filed. Undoing it would require the developer's consent, and they're already moving forward with demolition plans. I nodded, my hands clenched in my lap. I know, I said. But there has to be something, anything. He sighed. leaning back in his chair. You could try negotiating with them. Offer to buy it back at a premium. But it'll cost you. And they might not agree. I thanked him and left. The weight of my decision heavier than ever. I'd acted in anger. And now I was scrambling to undo the damage. Outside, the air was crisp. The first hint of fall creeping into the breeze. I drove to the venue, parking at the edge of the property where I could see the barn in the distance. A survey crew was there, orange vests bright against the fading grass, marking the land for whatever sterile project would replace our history. I sat on the hood of my car, staring at the barn, remembering the summers Clara and I had spent there as kids chasing fireflies, hiding in the loft, whispering secrets under the stars. I'd sold that memory. And for what? To make her feel small. I wasn't sure who I was anymore. That night, I called the developer, a man named Mr. Callahan, whose voice was all business. MS. Harper, he said. The property's already in motion. We've got investors. Timelines. Why the change of heart? I swallowed, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest. It's personal, I said. That place means more than I realized. I'd like to buy it back. He laughed, not unkindly, but it stung all the same. It's not that simple, he said, but I'll talk to my team. Send me an offer. I hung up, my hands shaking. I didn't have the money to outbid his investors, not without draining everything I'd saved. But I had to try. I spent the next day drafting an offer, scraping together every cent I could me savings. A loan application. Even the idea of selling my workshop tools if it came to that. I sent it to Callahan, then waited, my nerves frayed. Clara still wasn't speaking to me, but I saw her car at the house, her silhouette moving behind the curtains. I wanted to knock, to explain. But what could I say? That I was sorry. That I'd been wrong. The words felt too small for the damage I'd done. Instead, I went back to my shop, picking up the chisel again, carving a new Paisea small figurine of two girls holding hands, like Clara and me in better days. Callahan called back 2 days later. Your offer's generous, he said, but we're too far along. The investors want to move forward. My heart sank, but I pressed him. What if I find another property for you? Something better. There was a pause, then a chuckle. You're persistent. I'll give you that. Find me something comparable, and we'll talk. It was a slim chance, but it was something. I spent the next week scouring real estate listings, driving to empty lots and abandoned buildings, searching for anything that might tempt Callahan. I barely slept, my days a blur of phone calls and site visits, my nights haunted by Clara's tear-streaked face. One evening, Mom found me in the kitchen, poring over maps and property listings. Emily, she said, sitting across from me. What are you doing? I hesitated, then told her everything: the sale, the regret, the desperate plan to undo it. She listened, her eyes soft but sad. You and Clara, she said, you're so different, but you're both so stubborn. You hurt each other because you love each other too much. I looked away, my throat tight. I didn't mean for it to go this far, I said. She reached for my hand, and this time, I let her. Then fix it, she said. Not the venue. Your sister. Her words hit like a hammer. I'd been so focused on the barn, on undoing the sale, that I'd forgotten what really mattered. Clara. Our bond. The years we'd spent leaning on each other, even when we didn't know how to say it. I drove to her apartment that night, my heart pounding as I knocked on her door. She opened it, her face guarded, her eyes cold. What do you want, Emily? She asked. I took a breath, the words spilling out before I could stop them. I'm sorry, I said. I was wrong. I sold the venue to hurt you, and I hate myself for it. I'm trying to fix it, but even if I can't, I need you to know I love you. Her expression softened, just for a moment, before she shut the door. I stood there, alone in the hallway. But for the first time, I felt a flicker of hope. The door's soft click echoed in my ears as I stood in the hallway. Clara's silence louder than any words she could have spoken. I wanted to pound on the door, to make her listen, but I knew it wouldn't help. I'd hurt her too deeply, and apologies, no matter how raw, couldn't erase that overnight. I drove home under a starless sky, my mind racing with what-ifs. What if I couldn't get the venue back? What if Clara never forgave me? What if I'd broken us for good? The questions gnawed at me, but beneath them was a stubborn resolve. I wasn't done trying, not for the barn, not for her. The next morning, I found a Lita vacant lot on the edge of town, larger than our property, with better access for Callahan's development plans. I called him, my voice steady despite the exhaustion weighing me down. I've got something, I said. A better site. Can we meet? He agreed. And by afternoon, we were walking the lot, his eyes scanning the flat, open land with interest. This could work, he said, rubbing his chin. But it's not just about the land. My investors want a return. You'd need to cover the difference in value, plus costs for relocating the project. I nodded, my stomach twisting. It was a long shot, but it was a shot. I spent the next few days crunching numbers, calling banks, even reaching out to old clients who'd bought my furniture. I offered custom pieces, discounts, anything to raise the money. My workshop became my refuge, the rhythm of sawing and sanding keeping my panic at bay. One night, as I worked on a new table, Clara's box caught my eye, sitting on a shelf where Mom had left it. I picked it up, tracing the carvings, remembering the pride I'd felt making it. I'd poured so much into it, and she'd dismissed it in seconds. But now, I wondered if I'd been too quick to judge her, too quick to let one moment define her. I called Mom, needing her perspective. She's hurting, Mom said, her voice soft over the phone. But she's also ashamed. She knows she was cruel. Emily. She just doesn't know how to say it. I swallowed, my chest tight. What do I do? I asked. Keep trying, she said. Not just with the venue. With her. Show her you're still her sister. I hung up, staring at the box. Maybe Mom was right. Maybe this wasn't just about fixing my mistake, it was about rebuilding what Clara and I had lost. I wrote Clara a letter that night, my words clumsy but honest. I told her about the box, how it wasn't just wood and varnish, but a piece of me, a wish for her happiness. I told her I'd sold the venue in anger, that I regretted it, that I was fighting to get it back. I didn't ask for forgiveness. I just asked her to read it. I slipped the letter under her door the next morning, my heart pounding as I walked away. I didn't expect a response, but I needed her to know I was trying. Callahan called a week later with news. My team likes the new lot, he said. If you can cover the costs, we'll sell the venue back to you. The number he quoted was staggering, more than I'd ever dreamed of raising. But I didn't hesitate. I'll get it, I said, my voice firm. I spent the next week selling everything I could: furniture, tools, even my truck. I took out a second loan. My credit stretched to the breaking point. By the end of it, I had just enough. I met Callahan at his office, signing the papers with shaking hands. The venue was ours again. I'd done it. But as I drove home, I realized the real work was just beginning. I went to Clara's apartment again, this time with the deed in my hand. She opened the door, her eyes wary but softer than before. "I got it back," I said, holding out the papers. "The venue. It's yours again." She stared at me, her mouth slightly open, then took the deed, her fingers brushing mine. "Why?" she whispered. "After everything. Why would you do this?" I took a breath, my voice steady. "Because you're my sister," I said. "And I love you, even when you hurt me." Her eyes filled with tears, and for the first time in weeks, she didn't look away. Clara's tears caught the light as she stood in her doorway, the deed trembling in her hands. I wanted to reach for her, to pull her into a hug like we used to as kids. But I stayed still, giving her space. "You didn't have to do this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know," I replied, my throat tight. "But I wanted to." She looked down at the papers, then back at me, her expression a mix of gratitude and guilt. "I don't deserve this," she said. I shook my head. "It's not about deserving, Clara. It's about us." She nodded, a small, hesitant motion, and stepped aside. "Come in," she said. It was the first crack in the wall between us. We sat in her living room, the air heavy with unspoken words. The deed lay on the coffee table, a silent witness to our fractured bond. "I read your letter," she said, her fingers twisting together. "I didn't realize how much that box meant to you." I swallowed, the memory of her laugh still sharp. "It wasn't just the box," I said. "It was everything. The way you made me feel invisible." Her eyes dropped, and for the first time, I saw shame in her posture, the way her shoulders curled inward. "I didn't mean to," she said. "I was caught up in the moment. In Ethan. In the party. I wasn't thinking." I nodded, the hurt still there, but softer now, like a bruise beginning to fade. We talked for hours, the words halting at first, then flowing like a dam breaking. She told me about the pressure she felt Ethan's wealthy family, the expectations of a perfect wedding, the fear of not measuring up. I told her about my loneliness, the years spent in her shadow, the way her laugh had shattered something in me. We didn't solve everything that night, but we listened, really listened, for the first time in years. When I left, she hugged me, her arms tight around me, and I felt a piece of us slot back into place. The next day, I went to the venue, needing to see it with my own eyes. The surveyors were gone, the land quiet again, the barn standing proud against the morning sky. I walked inside, the familiar creak of the floorboards grounding me. I could still see Clara's engagement party here. The lights, the laughter, the moment everything changed. But now, I saw something else he had chance to rebuild. Not just the venue, but our family. I started cleaning, sweeping out the dust, restringing the lights. It was small, but it felt right, like sanding the rough edges of a new piece of wood. Clara called me that afternoon, her voice tentative. "Can I come to the venue?" she asked. "I want to see it." I agreed, and when she arrived, she brought Ethan. His presence made me tense, his polished exterior a reminder of that night. But I pushed it aside. "It's yours again," I said, gesturing to the barn. Clara walked through it, her fingers trailing along the walls, her eyes distant. "I'm sorry," she said finally, turning to me. "For the box. For everything. I didn't see you, Emily. I do now." Ethan shifted, his expression unreadable. But he nodded. "We're grateful," he said, And for once, it didn't sound rehearsed. We started planning together, not just for the wedding, but for the venue's future. I suggested turning it into a community space after the wedding, a place for events, for families like ours to make memories. Clara loved the idea, her eyes lighting up in a way I hadn't seen in years. We worked side by side, painting, decorating, laughing over old stories. It wasn't perfect, there were still moments of tension, old wounds that ached, but it was progress. Mom joined us one day, her smile wide as she watched us together. "This is what your dad wanted," she said. "You two, together." But the peace was fragile. One evening, as we hung lanterns, Ethan pulled me aside. "Clara doesn't know this," he said, his voice low, "but my family's putting pressure on her. They think the venue's a liability now. After the sale, they want us to move the wedding to their estate." I stared at him, my stomach twisting. "What are you saying?" I asked. He hesitated, then met my eyes. "I'm saying I'm on your side, Emily. But Clara's torn. She loves you, but she's scared of losing them." His words hit like a punch. I'd fought so hard to get the venue back, to fix things with Clara, and now it might not be enough. I nodded, my jaw tight. "Thanks for telling me," I said, and walked away, my mind already racing with what to do next. Ethan's words lingered like a storm cloud as I drove home, the headlights cutting through the dusk. Clara was caught between me and Ethan's family, and I knew how easily she could bend under pressure. She'd always craved approval, especially from people like Ethan's parents, with their wealth and expectations. I'd given her the venue back, but what if it wasn't enough? What if she chose them over us? The thought made my chest ache, but I pushed it down. I'd fought too hard to let this slip away. I needed to talk to her, to make her see what the venue meant, not just for her wedding, but for us, for our family. I called her the next morning, asking her to meet me at the barn. She arrived alone, her face drawn, her eyes avoiding mine. "Ethan told me about his family," I said, cutting straight to it. "Are you thinking of moving the wedding?" She flinched, her hands twisting together. "I don't know," she admitted. "They're intense. They think the venue's tainted now. After the sale, they want something cleaner, something they control." I felt a spark of anger, not at her, but at them, at the way they wielded their influence. "And what do you want?" I asked. She looked at the barn, her expression softening. "I want this," she said. "But I'm scared, Emily. I don't want to lose Ethan." I took a breath, steadying myself. "You won't lose him," I said. "And you won't lose me. We'll figure this out together." She nodded, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. I decided then that I needed to do more than talk. I needed to show her why the venue mattered, why our family mattered. I spent the next few days gathering memories, old photos of us in the barn, Dad's sketches of the renovations he'd planned, even a letter he'd written to us about keeping the place alive. I put them in the box I'd made for her, the one she'd laughed at, and left it on her doorstep with a note. "This is us. Don't let them take it away." Clara called me the next day, her voice thick with emotion. "I saw the box," she said. "I'm sorry, Emily. I didn't realize all of it." We met at the venue again, and this time, she brought the box, her fingers tracing the carvings as we walked through the barn. "Dad loved this place," she said, her eyes on a photo of us as kids, sitting on the loft stairs. I forgot how much it meant. I nodded, my throat tight. "It's not just the barn," I said. "It's us. You and me. We're stronger than their money. Clara." She hugged me then, her arms fierce. and I knew we were on the same side again. But Ethan's family wasn't done. A week later, his mother, Mrs. Langley, called me directly. Her voice was polished, cold. "Emily," she said, "I understand you've convinced Clara to keep the wedding at that barn. I'd like to meet with you. We need to discuss what's best for her future." I agreed, more out of curiosity than trust, and met her at a sleek downtown cafe. She was all elegance. Her designer suit a stark contrast to my jeans and flannel. "Clara's making a mistake," she said, stirring her coffee. "That venue's a liability. Our estate is more suitable, more refined. I'm prepared to cover any costs to move the wedding." I leaned back, my jaw tight. "It's not about money," I said. "It's about family." She smiled, thin and sharp. "Family doesn't pay for a legacy, Emily. Influence does." I left the meeting rattled but resolute. Mrs. Langley's words were a challenge. A reminder that Clara's choice wasn't just about the venue, it was about who she wanted to be. I called Clara that night, telling her about the meeting. "She's trying to control you," I said. "Don't let her." Clara was quiet for a long moment, then said, "I know. I told Ethan I want the barn. He's with me." Relief flooded me, but it was tempered by caution. Ethan's loyalty was untested, and his family's influence was strong. I knew we weren't out of the woods yet. The next week, we threw ourselves into the wedding plans, determined to make the barn shine. Clara was different now, more present, more like the sister I remembered. We laughed over paint swatches, argued over table settings, and stayed up late stringing lights. One night, as we sat on the loft stairs, she took my hand. "I was wrong," she said. "About the box. About you. I'm so sorry, Emily." I squeezed her hand, my eyes stinging. "I'm sorry too," I said. I let my anger win. "But we're here now." She smiled, and for the first time, I felt like we'd rebuilt something stronger than before. The barn was coming alive again, its walls glowing with fresh paint, its rafters draped with lights that twinkled like stars. Clara and I worked side by side, our rhythm easy now, like the old days when we'd tackle projects together. But I couldn't shake the unease Mrs. Langley's words had left in me. Her offer to cover costs, her talk of influence felt like a warning, a reminder that she wasn't used to losing. I watched Clara closely, searching for signs of doubt, but she seemed resolute, her focus on the wedding sharper than ever. Still, I knew Ethan's family wouldn't let go easily. One afternoon, as we arranged tables, Ethan showed up alone, his usual polish replaced by a nervous energy. "Emily," he said, pulling me aside. "My parents are pushing back. They're threatening to pull their support financially, socially, if we don't move the wedding." I stared at him, my heart sinking. "What did Clara say?" I asked. He hesitated, his eyes flicking away. "She doesn't know yet." I didn't want to stress her out. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to stay calm. "You need to tell her," I said. "She deserves to know what she's up against." He nodded, but I saw the conflict in his face, the pull between Clara and his family. That night, I told Clara myself. We were in the barn, folding napkins, when I broke the silence. "Ethan's parents are threatening to cut him off if you keep the wedding here," I said. Her hands froze, her face paling. "He didn't tell me," she whispered. I nodded, hating the pain in her eyes. "He's trying to protect you," I said. "But you need to decide what matters more, his family's approval or this." I gestured to the barn, to the memories we'd reclaimed. She looked around, her eyes lingering on the photos we'd hung on the walls as kids. Dad's sketches. Our family story. This, she said finally, her voice firm. This matters. Clara confronted Ethan that night, and I stayed out of it, giving them space. The next morning, she called me, her voice steady but tired. He's with me, she said. He told his parents we're keeping the wedding here. They're not happy, but he's choosing me. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Good, I said. You deserve that. But I knew the Langleys wouldn't give up so easily. Sure enough, a few days later, Mrs. Langley called Clara, her tone all sweetness and steel. She offered a compromise second reception at their estate, a way to honor both families. Clara was tempted. I could see it. But she held firm. No, she told me later. This is our day. Emily. Ours. The wedding was 3 weeks away, and the barn was nearly ready. We'd transformed it into something magical. Every detail a testament to our family's resilience. But the closer we got, the more I felt a strange unease. Like we were waiting for a storm to break. One evening, as I locked up the barn, I found a note taped to the door. It was typed. Anonymous. The words chilling. You can't keep what isn't yours. My blood ran cold. Was it the Langleys? Someone else? I didn't tell Clara she was already stretched thin, but I called Mr. Hargrove, asking him to check the property records. Make sure everything was secure. It's solid, he assured me. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching. Waiting. I started staying at the barn overnight, sleeping on a cot in the loft, a flashlight by my side. Clara thought I was being paranoid, but she didn't argue when I insisted on extra locks. One night, I woke to a noisy soft thud, like footsteps on the gravel outside. I grabbed the flashlight, my heart pounding, and crept to the window. The lot was empty, the moonlight casting long shadows. But I saw something glint near the barn door. I went down, my hands shaking, and found a crowbar lying in the dirt. Fresh scratches on the lock. Someone had tried to break in. I called the police, but they found no fingerprints. No witnesses. Probably kids, they said, but I knew better. This was personal. I told Clara the next day, and her face went pale. Do you think it's Ethan's family? She asked. I shrugged, not wanting to scare her more. Maybe, I said. Or someone who doesn't like that we got the venue back. We doubled down on security, hiring a guard for the nights leading up to the wedding. Clara was shaken, but she didn't waver. We're doing this, she said, her jaw set. No one's taking this from us. I looked at her, my sister, and felt a surge of pride. She wasn't the golden girl anymore, she was stronger. Grounded. Ours. The wedding day dawned clear and crisp, the barn glowing under a sky streaked with pink. Clara was radiant, her dress simple but stunning, her smile brighter than I'd seen in years. I stood by her side, not as a maid of honor, but as her sister, my heart full despite the lingering unease. The crowbar incident had left me jumpy, but the security guard reported nothing unusual, and the barn was secure. Guests filled the space, their laughter mingling with the soft music, the lights we'd strung casting a warm glow. Ethan stood at the altar, his eyes on Clara, and for once, I believed he was all in. The ceremony was perfect. Every word and vow a promise not just between Clara and Ethan, but to our family's legacy. I caught Mom's eye as Clara walked down the aisle, her hand in mine for a moment before she stepped forward. We both cried, not out of sadness, but relief. A release of all the pain we'd carried. The reception was a blur of toasts and dancing. The barn alive with joy. I watched Clara laugh, not the sharp laugh that had cut me, but a real one, full of light, and felt something settle in me. We'd made it. But as the night wound down, Mrs. Langley approached me, her smile tight. "You've done well, Emily," she said, her voice laced with something I couldn't place. "But don't think this changes anything." I frowned, my guard up. "What do you mean?" I asked. She leaned closer, her eyes cold. "You may have won this round, but families like ours don't forget." Before I could respond, she walked away, disappearing into the crowd. My stomach twisted, but I pushed it aside. This was Clara's day, and I wouldn't let anyone ruin it. Later, as we cleaned up, Clara found me in the loft, where I was gathering leftover decorations. "Emily," she said, her voice soft. "Thank you for everything." She held the box I'd made, now filled with mementos from the wedding photos. A pressed flower, a note from Ethan. "I'm keeping this forever," she said, her eyes meeting mine. I smiled, my throat tight. "Good," I said. "It's yours." We hugged, and in that moment, I knew we'd rebuilt something stronger than the barn, stronger than revenge or pride, our bond. The next morning, I woke to a call from Mr. Hargrove. "Emily," he said, his voice urgent. "There's a problem. Someone's filed a claim against the property, saying the sale back to you is invalid." My heart stopped. "Who?" I asked, though I already suspected. "Anonymous," he said, "but they've got money behind them." I hung up, my mind racing. The Langleys. It had to be them. I didn't tell Clara. Not yet. She deserved her honeymoon, her moment of peace. But I knew this wasn't over. I went to the barn, standing in its quiet emptiness, and made a silent vow. I'd fought for this place once. For Clara. For us. I'd fight again. Months later, the legal battle was in full swing. But so was our family. Clara and I worked together now. Not just on the venue, but on a new project, a community center. A place for others to build memories like ours. The Langleys' claim was strong, but we were stronger. I'd learned something through all this, not just about revenge or redemption, but about love. The kind that hurts, that breaks, that rebuilds. Clara and I weren't perfect, but we were sisters, and that was enough. As I stood in the barn, the box on a shelf nearby, I felt Dad's presence, his dream alive in us. I'd sold the venue in anger, but I'd bought it back with love. And no one, not the Langleys, not my own mistakes, could take that away.